Hi everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're just joining me for the first time, my name is Chinwe. I'm a project manager and I talk about everything projects, business analysis and just basically survival skills to help you thrive in your workplace, okay? This is the second video in a series of videos that I'm going to be putting out there on project management. The whole idea behind the series of videos is to help you decide if project management is the field for you, if this is what you want to do, or if you're already in the project management space, to help you thrive, in your career as a project management. Okay, so before we go into the tips, the hacks, the shortcuts, everything good, it's important that we start from the basics, the beginning. What is a project? A project is a temporary endeavor that is undertaken with the expectation of putting out a product, a service, or an outcome. That's just basically what a project is. It's temporary and you do it because you want to put out a specific product, an outcome, or a service. And then project management is the discipline that is associated with managing the resources, planning, coming up with the strategy to implement that project. It's that simple. Okay, now in project management there are various, I call them maybe sub-disciplines. We've got construction, we've got IT project management, we've got pharmaceutical project management, we've got telecoms project management, SEO project management, construction project management. I can't recall if I mentioned that earlier. We also even have events project management. There are several aspects of project management, and that's because project managers are required to function in. So you have to have some area or some level of specialization to be able to function in those industries as a project manager. I, for example, have zero idea about construction, so I won't be able to effectively lead a construction project. I would have the basics, but when it comes to certifications, that are required to ensure safety on a construction site, for example, I don't have those. So I would not be able to effectively lead a construction project. Now, in the international development space, I do have some certifications on, for example, in what I call it violent prone areas, certifications in gender and inclusion, because that has to do with the work that I do as an international development project manager. In IT, I do have an Agile certification. I have a Prince 2 certification, so I can lead several IT and other traditional projects. Okay, before we go ahead, I need to point out the various elements, so the things that make up project. We call them project management elements or project elements. Okay, we have the scope. This has to do with how the boundaries of the project, what do you want to cover. This speaks to even demographical information. Okay, this speaks to size, what do you want us to focus on. Okay, that's what the scope is. How big, how small do we want the project to be. We also have cost. How much is it going to cost us to implement this project? You're looking at this point, you're looking at your project sponsor's budget or the donor's budget if you're in the international development space. Okay, and then you're also looking at time. How long do we have to implement this project? Because you have to break down the task, the activities that will take place in the course of implementing this project into the time that is available given to you by the sponsor, or maybe the agreed with the project donor as well. Okay, and then we also have quality. Yes, this is the means by which the project is measured. How do you know that you've delivered something that meets with the project sponsors or project donors requirements? So there has to be a rubric, a means for measuring the quality, for ensuring that yes, you have ticked the box on project sponsors, not just about the project sponsor, but also stakeholders that will be, that are involved in this project, ensuring that you meet their quality standards, even as well as the consumers or the clients or the beneficiaries of that project as well. Okay, and then finally we have risks. Yes, risk management is an important part of project management. Risk has to do with the tendency that something could go wrong in the course of the implementation of this project. So you have to have a risk management approach. What could go wrong? How would it impact the project? To what degree? Who would be responsible for managing the risk and actioning the risk on this project? So those are the elements of a project. And now we have phases. There are 5 phases to project management, okay? Some persons may say 4. Depending on the size of the project, I tend to go with 4 phases, all right? But for the purpose of learning, I'm going to share with you the 5 phases of project management that you should be aware of, all right? So the first phase is the initiation phase. So in this initiation phase, this is when you're meeting with your project donor in the international development space, or you're meeting with your project owner or your project sponsor. Basically, whoever is responsible for doling out the cash, this is where you're meeting with the person or the organization or persons representing the organization to agree on to sort of understand, because it's important that you understand their vision. Oh yes, because if you don't understand their vision, there's a tendency to put out something that does not meet their expectations, okay? So you need to understand their vision, the objective for implementing this sort of project, what they hope to have as their objective, or what their objectives are, their specific objectives, what the goals, what drives them, what the specific outcomes are. So this is where you're meeting with them at this stage to agree on what those objectives are and what those outcomes, high-level outcomes should be. All right, and then you're agreeing on how long it will take to implement something of that nature. If the bigger the vision, the longer the time it takes to implement, especially if you're dealing with a project that is targeting behavioral change, then you're talking about a minimum of 3 to 5 years for that project. That is if you're implementing something in the international development space, right? So you're agreeing on the timeline. You're agreeing on the key stakeholders, sort of high level. This is, at this point, it's kind of high level. Who are the other partners? Do they want to implement this in partnership with other organizations? This is where things like that would be discussed, okay? And then you're agreeing on the overall budget. This is what, sometimes they already have this fixed budget in mind. This is what we want, make it happen. So this is, at this stage, this is when you're setting expectations, saying if this is what you have, this is what you would get, all right? It has to be clear. This is what the money will be spent on. So all this happens in the initiation phase. And then the outcome or the product of that phase is the project charter. It's like your contract. It's something that sort of binds organizations together. Some organizations call it the project overview document. Anyway, it's a high-level document saying this is what we want to do, this is what we're working towards, this is how much it's going to cost us, these are the people that will help us achieve, these objectives, and this is how much it will take for us to implement it. Now you have that project charter, you can now move into the planning phase, and the planning phase is when you're breaking down the things that you're going to do into activities and into tasks, okay? And you're assigning people to those activities or to those specific, tasks. You're also agreeing on how long it's going to take for these activities to be implemented. Bear in mind, this is not done in isolation, all right? You're meeting with your team or members of your team to agree on what the team you have at this point, okay? Because at this point, it's still a little bit skeletal until you've done your work breakdown structure, you've done, the actual planning, and then you see that, you need an administrator, maybe you need 2 administrators, maybe you need 2 back-end developers, or maybe you need 3 business analysts. You need a senior business analyst, and 2 junior business analysts, okay? So once all this has been done, of course, you have to assign costs to each of these resources. And once you've assigned costs, you're also working with the accounts team or the finance team to come up with, a breakdown of this budget. So in granular detail, what the money would be spent on, right? So the product of this phase is either your work breakdown, structure, or your project work plan, whatever you want to call it. In some cases, there are 2 different documents. In some organizations, they come across as, they're represented as 1 document. All right. Personally, there are 2 different documents. Right, so once you have your work breakdown structure and your project work plan, you can now move to the implementation phase. So now you're in the implementation phase of your project or the execution phase of your project, okay? Whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. This is where you're taking your project work plan, your project, basically you're breaking down you're implementing the activities that has been agreed upon in your work breakdown structure. And if you're in the IT space, this is where you're looking at you're moving items from your product backlog. You've already done your sprint planning, and you already know it's going to be completed in sprint 1, sprint 2. You already have an idea of like the number of sprints, and you started implementing those sprints. You've moved items from your product backlog to your to-do. Okay, from your to-do to your in progress, from your in progress to your to be reviewed, and from your to be reviewed to completed. Okay, so this is that phase where all that happens. If you're in the international development space, then you're doing your trainings, you're doing your capacity development, you're doing your, if it's a WASH project, which is water, sanitation and hygiene, you're even setting up infrastructure, you're setting up boreholes at this point, because you already have the map, the plan for what you want to do, and you're implementing. Okay, the next phase of the project is the monitoring and controlling phase. This phase has to do with quality management, so ensuring that the project is being implemented in line with quality standards. Personally, I bring this phase into the implementation and execution phase because I want to make sure that from the beginning I'm hitting all the quality requirements of the project. The project is not going out of scope, or what we call scope creep. There's no scope creep being observed. What this means is you're implementing projects or implementing activities or carrying out activities that are not in line with what was agreed, in the project charter. That could have a negative impact on your budget as well as the project timeline. Okay, so in this phase, you're looking at your key performance indicators and ensuring that you're ticking all the boxes on your key performance indicator. Quality management plan is being, adhered to, and if not, this is a point where you course correct. Again, you see why I say I like to do this in the implementation phase as well, so that I can begin to course correct, from the very beginning, and ensure that I'm not course correcting too late, which could again have an impact on the timeline of the project. Finally, we have project closure. Project closure is when you ensure that your issues log, because in the course of implementing, you have your document where you register all the issues that has come up in the course of implementing the project. You're assigning someone to action those issues or to address those issues. So at the project closure phase, you're not just walking away from the project. You want to make sure that all the items that have been listed on that issues log have been addressed, and then you've closed that log. Okay, your risk log, again, if there are risks that came up in the course of implementing the project, those risks have been mitigated and they have been addressed. So you also close your risk log. Alright, you want to make sure that if it's at this point, if it's an IT product, the people you're handing over the product to have had training guides are ready, everybody's ready to take over. You've received sign up from the unit head or whoever it is that's responsible for taking off that product from your hands. You're making sure that you've gotten your sign off on basically all the deliverables for the project. And in another video, we're going to talk more about project deliverables. You also want to make sure that your lessons learned document has been completed. So all the lessons you learned in the course of implementation of this project is properly documented and closed. And the reason you want to do this is for future projects. Could be a reference document for yourself or for the organization when they're implementing a similar project or any project whatsoever. This is a document that you can reference to ensure that certain mistakes are not repeated. Okay, all right, thank you so much for listening to this video. If this was impactful, this was helpful to you, please leave a comment in this comment section below to let me know. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, also let me know. All right, so in the meantime, please click the like button, share this video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this.